What if everything you believed about personal transformation was wrong? What if the very framework you've been using to measure a successful and happy life was fundamentally flawed? For years, I operated on a simple, seemingly logical equation: effort plus achievement equals happiness. I chased external validations like they were lifelines, the perfect job title that would finally make me feel legitimate, the ideal relationship that would fill a void I couldn't even name, the right possessions that would signal to the world and to myself that I had arrived. I was running on a treadmill, believing that the next milestone, the next accolade, was the finish line where I could finally rest and feel content. But a strange thing kept happening. Every time I reached one of these coveted goals, the satisfaction was intense, yes, but it was also heartbreakingly temporary. It was like pouring water into a container with a hidden crack at the bottom. There would be a moment of fullness, a sense of "I made it," only to watch the level of my contentment slowly, inexorably drain away, leaving me thirsty again, my gaze already fixed on the next horizon. The promotion came, and within weeks it was just my job. The new car smell faded, the vacation became a memory. This cycle wasn't just exhausting, it was creating a low-grade hum of anxiety, a feeling that I was perpetually behind, that true, lasting peace was always just out of reach. Then, during a particularly difficult period of my life, I stumbled upon Stoicism. I'll be honest, my initial impression was of a cold, austere philosophy for grim-faced men who repressed their emotions. But out of desperation, I dug deeper. And what I found didn't just change my philosophy, it rewired my entire understanding of what it means to be human, to live well, and to find genuine fulfillment. These ancient principles, forged in fire by emperors, slaves, and statesmen, became a practical operating system for my mind. They transformed my daily experience of being alive from a constant state of striving to a grounded state of being. Today, I want to share with you the 10 Stoic realizations that didn't just shift my perspective, they rebuilt my life from the foundation up. The obstacle isn't the path. The obstacle becomes the path. Before we dive into these life-altering concepts, if you're ready to move beyond the surface level, quick fix self-help, and build something genuine and unshakable within yourself, I invite you to hit that subscribe button and join our growing Stoic Mindset Mastery community. We're building a space not for theoretical debate, but for practical transformation, where we support each other in applying this wisdom to our messy, modern lives. Now, let's begin with the first and perhaps most foundational realization. The first realization: your perception creates your reality. The Stoics understood something profound over 2,000 years ago that modern cognitive psychology and neuroscience have only recently begun to confirm in labs. We do not experience events themselves. We experience our interpretation of those events. There is a space, a gap, between what happens to us and how we feel about it. And in that gap lies all of our power and our freedom. Think about it. Two people can face the exact same objective circumstance: being laid off from a job, for instance. One person might spiral into a story of failure, worthlessness, and catastrophe. "I'm a fraud. I'll never recover. My career is over." This interpretation creates a reality of despair, paralysis, and depression. The other person, facing the same pink slip, might frame it as a forced opportunity. This is a chance to finally pursue the work I'm passionate about. This is the push I needed to reassess my path. I have skills that are valuable elsewhere. This interpretation creates a reality of energy, possibility, and proactive searching. The event is identical. The reality each person inhabits is worlds apart. Epictetus, a man who was born into the brutal institution of slavery, and thus knew a thing or two about circumstances beyond his control, stated this principle with stunning clarity. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. When I truly internalized this, it was like being given a remote control for my own mind. I began to catch myself in the act of creating my own suffering. I'd receive a critical email and feel that familiar lurch of anxiety. But then I'd pause and ask, what is the story I'm telling myself about this email? Am I interpreting it as a personal attack or as constructive feedback? Am I assuming malicious intent or simply rushed communication? This simple act of questioning my initial perception gave me a choice. I could choose the story that empowered me rather than the one that diminished me. This single mental shift from passive victim of circumstance to active author of interpretation is more powerful than any raise, any possession, any external validation you could ever acquire. The second realization: you already possess everything you need to be happy. We are culturally conditioned to believe that happiness is a destination, a future state that we arrive at once certain conditions are met. We tell ourselves, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, when I lose 20 pounds, when I find my soulmate, when I have $1 million in the bank. This when-then model of happiness is a trap. It keeps us perpetually leaning into a future that never actually arrives, because once one condition is met, another immediately takes its place. Stoicism offers a radical and liberating counterpoint. It flips the script entirely. It suggests that happiness, or more accurately, tranquility and fulfillment, are not destinations to be reached, but skills to be practiced right now, with the materials already at hand. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, who had access to every luxury and pleasure imaginable, constantly had to remind himself of this. In his private journal, known today as Meditations, he wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He wasn't advocating for poverty or denying the value of ambition and growth. He was pointing to a fundamental truth, that the peace we seek externally is actually generated internally, through the quality of our thoughts and the depth of our appreciation. He had everything, and yet he knew that everything wasn't the source of his contentment. I decided to test this. I started a gratitude practice, but I committed to making it specific and written, not just a vague thought. Every evening, I would write down 3 things from that day that I was genuinely grateful for. At first, it felt forced. I'm grateful for my coffee. I'm grateful for my bed. But as I persisted, something subtle began to shift. My attention started to automatically scan for moments of beauty and connection throughout the day. The way the light fell through the window in the afternoon, the genuine laugh shared with a colleague, the taste of a perfectly ripe piece of fruit. I began to discover vast reservoirs of contentment in the ordinary, reservoirs I had been too busy striving to notice. The quality of your attention, I learned, truly determines the quality of your life. When you pay attention to what you lack, you feel lack. When you pay attention to what you have, you feel abundance. The third realization: your character is your only permanent possession. Look around at your life. Everything you see, your job, your home, your car, your relationships, your social status, even your physical health, is temporary. These things are on loan from the universe. They can be altered, damaged, or taken away in an instant by economic shifts, by accidents, by the actions of others, or by the simple passage of time. To build your sense of self and your happiness on this shifting sand is to invite constant anxiety. The Stoics proposed a different foundation. They suggested we build our lives on the one thing that is truly, unassailably ours: our character, our integrity, our courage, our justice, our wisdom, our capacity for self-discipline. These are the internal virtues that no external force can truly touch. You can be imprisoned, like Seneca or Epictetus, and still practice courage. You can be impoverished and still practice generosity of spirit. You can be maligned and still practice integrity. The Stoics measured success by a radical internal metric, not by what they accumulated, but by the person they became through their choices in each moment. When I began to adopt this mindset, my entire relationship with the concepts of success and failure transformed. I started ending my day with a different question. Instead of asking, "What did I achieve today?" I began asking, "Did I act with virtue today? Was I courageous in that difficult conversation? Was I fair in my judgment? Was I disciplined with my time?" This reframe was revolutionary. Failure was no longer a mark of shame. It became valuable feedback, showing me where my character muscles needed strengthening. Obstacles were no longer annoyances to be avoided. They became the essential training grounds where I could practice and build those very muscles. The goal of life shifted from getting what I want to becoming who I want to be, regardless of what I get. The fourth realization: the present moment is your only point of power. Where does your mind spend most of its time? If you're like most people, including my former self, it's probably time traveling. It's reliving and rehashing past conversations, past mistakes, past slights, the could-haves and should-haves that play on an endless, exhausting loop. Or it's projecting itself into an imagined future, rehearsing disasters, worrying about potential problems, and trying to solve puzzles that haven't even materialized. This mental time travel is the primary thief of peace. It drains our energy and leaves us operating at half capacity in the only place where our life is actually happening, the present moment. Seneca nailed this human tendency when he observed, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The anxiety we feel about tomorrow's presentation is almost always worse than the presentation itself. The shame we carry from a years-old mistake is a heavier burden than the original error. The Stoics practiced, with relentless discipline, the art of bringing their attention back to the now. This wasn't about shirking responsibility or failing to plan. It was about focusing their energy with surgical precision on the only domain where they could actually exert influence: their next thought, their next word, their next action. The past is immutable. The future is uncertain. The present is your field of agency. I incorporated a simple but powerful practice to build this muscle. Throughout the day, I would use sensory cues to anchor myself. I'd pause and feel the physical sensation of my feet firmly on the ground. I'd pay attention to the rhythm of my breath flowing in and out. I'd consciously listen to the sounds around me without labeling them as good or bad. When I found myself spiraling into worry about a future project, I'd ask, what is one small, concrete step I can take right now to move forward? This practice didn't make me passive. It made me profoundly more effective. The chronic, free-floating anxiety that had been my background noise for years simply lost its grip. The present moment, I discovered, is not just a point in time, it's a point of power. The fifth realization: difficulty is the raw material for growth. Our modern culture is a comfort-seeking missile. We are taught to avoid discomfort, pain, and difficulty at all costs. We have pills for every ache, entertainment for every moment of boredom, and delivery services for every craving. Stoicism offers a radical, almost rebellious, counter-argument. It suggests that voluntary, chosen discomfort is the gymnasium for the soul. It's the necessary friction that builds resilience, strength, and appreciation. The Stoics weren't masochists. They didn't seek pain for its own sake. But they understood that a life devoid of all challenge is a life that produces a weak, flabby character. By occasionally and intentionally choosing what we would normally avoid, the cold shower instead of the hot, the difficult and honest conversation instead of the polite silence, the extra hour of focused work instead of distracted scrolling, we are doing reps for our resilience. We are building an inner fortitude that will be our greatest asset when life inevitably delivers involuntary challenges, the sudden illness, the economic downturn, the personal loss. I started incredibly small. I committed to taking the stairs instead of the elevator at work. I forced myself to have one uncomfortable conversation per week that I had been avoiding. I would occasionally skip a meal, not to punish myself, but to remind myself that I could be okay with a little hunger. These were minor exercises, but they cumulatively built a profound emotional strength. When a major, unexpected life disruption hit a few years ago, I was astounded by my own response. There was a calmness at my core, a deep-seated knowledge that I could handle it, that I had already been training for this very moment. The goal of this practice is not to seek suffering, but to strip suffering of its power over you by stopping the fear of it. You learn that you can endure and even thrive amidst things you once believed would break you. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. The sixth realization: you can't control events, only your response. This is arguably the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, the dichotomy of control, and for good reason. It is the master key that unlocks emotional freedom. The Stoics divided the entire world into two neat, clean categories. Category 1: things within our complete control. This includes our opinions, our judgments, our values, our desires, our aversions, and ultimately, our actions and responses. Category 2: things not within our complete control. This is, well, everything else. The weather, the past, the actions and opinions of other people, our reputation, our wealth, our health, the outcome of our efforts. When you really sit with this, you realize that most of our emotional suffering, our anger, our anxiety, our frustration, our heartache, stems from a fundamental category error. We are trying to command the uncontrollable while neglecting our own sovereign territory. We waste our energy trying to make someone like us, trying to force a specific outcome at work, or raging against a traffic jam. All the while, we are ignoring the one place where we have absolute authority: our own mind and our chosen response. This distinction became my lifeline during a period of severe business challenges. The market had shifted, a key client had left, and revenue was plummeting. My initial impulse was panic to try and control everything and everyone around me. But remembering the dichotomy, I took a breath and made two lists. On one side, what I cannot control: the economy, my competitors' actions, my client's decision. On the other side, what I can control: my work ethic, my creativity and problem solving, the quality of service I provide to remaining clients, my attitude, my perseverance. I tore up the first list and focused all my energy on the second. The panic didn't just lessen, it transformed into a clear, purposeful, and even exciting challenge. By surrendering the illusion of control over externals, I seized real control over my internal world, and that made all the difference. The seventh realization: your life is what your attention dwells upon. We live in an age of unprecedented distraction. We are careful, often obsessive, about what we put into our bodies: organic food, filtered water, specific supplements. But we are remarkably careless about what we put into our minds. We consume a constant diet of sensationalist news, social media comparisons, trivial entertainment, and fear-based content, often on autopilot, without considering the psychological toll. The Stoics were fierce guardians of their mental citadel. They understood that your mind is sacred ground, and what you allow to enter it shapes who you are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." It's a powerful metaphor. Every piece of media you consume, every conversation you engage in, every environment you inhabit is a dye that colors your consciousness. Spend hours scrolling through curated highlight reels of other people's lives, and your soul will be dyed with the colors of comparison and inadequacy. Consume endless political outrage, and your soul will be dyed with anger and cynicism. I decided to conduct an audit of my mental diet. I tracked my screen time. I paid attention to how I felt after certain TV shows or conversations. The results were startling. I was consuming mental junk food, and it was making me mentally sick, anxious, scattered, and dissatisfied. So, I made changes. I drastically limited my news consumption. I curated my social media feeds to include only educational and inspirational content. I replaced background noise with podcasts or audiobooks that enriched my mind. I became intentional about my conversations, steering them towards substance rather than gossip. This wasn't about hiding from the world, it was about protecting my inner world. The result was that my default mental state slowly shifted from one of low-grade anxiety and distraction to one of groundedness and clarity. Your attention is not just a resource, it is your life. What you pay attention to, you become. Your most powerful motivator. In our modern culture, death is the great unmentionable. We treat it as a morbid, terrifying topic to be avoided at all costs. We use euphemisms, we hide the dying away in hospitals, and we distract ourselves from the one certainty of life. The Stoics did the exact opposite. They practiced memento mori, the remembrance of death. They kept skulls on their desks. They reflected on the deaths of great leaders, and they began each day by acknowledging that it could be their last. This sounds grim, but its purpose was the opposite of morbidity. It was a tool for creating urgency, clarity, and a profound appreciation for life. Remembering that this conversation, this project, this lazy afternoon with a loved one could be your last, infuses it with a precious, vibrant intensity. It pulls you out of the autopilot of daily trivialities and forces you to confront what truly matters. I started incorporating this into my evening reflection. As I lay in bed, I would ask myself a simple question. If this had been my last day, would I be satisfied with how I lived it? The first few times, the answer was often a sobering no. I had wasted time on petty grievances, gotten stressed about things that didn't matter, and postponed meaningful connections. But this question became a powerful compass. It instantly clarified my priorities. Petty conflicts with colleagues lost their significance. The urge to procrastinate on a creative project vanished. The desire to tell my family I loved them became urgent. Remembering my mortality didn't make me fearful, it made me more alive. It transformed life from a vague, endless expanse into a finite, precious gift, and it motivated me to stop wasting it. The ninth realization: other people's opinions are their business, not yours. How much mental real estate do we rent out, for free, to what we imagine other people are thinking about us? We shape our choices, stifle our voices, and contort our personalities in a desperate attempt to manage perceptions over which we have zero control. The fear of judgment, of not being liked, of being criticized, is a prison of our own making. The Stoics were crystal clear on this. Reputation is an external. It sits firmly in the not our control category. What other people say, think, or do is their business, a reflection of their own character, judgments, and biases. Our only business is to ensure that we are acting with integrity according to our own principles. If we are living virtuously, then the opinions of others are irrelevant. If we are not living virtuously, then their opinions are the least of our problems. Epictetus offered a brilliantly witty piece of advice for dealing with criticism. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." When I truly embraced this, a massive, invisible weight lifted from my shoulders. I stopped rehearsing conversations in my head, trying to craft the perfect response that would make everyone like me. I stopped saying yes when I meant no to avoid disappointing people. I started dressing how I wanted, pursuing interests that genuinely fascinated me, and expressing opinions that felt true even if they were unpopular. The energy I had been wasting on managing perceptions was now available for living my actual life. The freedom was, and continues to be, exhilarating. The 10th and most transformative realization: philosophy is for living, not for debate. This is the realization that ties all the others together. It's the difference between being a fan of Stoicism and being a practitioner. Stoicism is not an intellectual parlor game. It's not about being able to quote Marcus Aurelius at a dinner party or win an argument about virtue ethics. It is a practical, rugged, daily toolkit for navigating the real, messy, and often painful challenges of being human. The ultimate test of your philosophy is not how eloquently you can discuss it, but how effectively you can live it when the pressure is on, when you're stuck in traffic, when your flight is cancelled, when you receive harsh criticism, when you face a terrifying opportunity, when you are betrayed by someone you trust. That is when your philosophy is tested. Are you more patient with your children because of what you've read? Are you more courageous in your work? Are you more generous with your time and resources? Are you more resilient in the face of setbacks? These are the only report cards that matter. I had to make this shift myself. I was a great collector of philosophical concepts. I had the books, the highlights, the notes, but I was still reacting to life with the same old patterns of anxiety and frustration. The change came when I stopped treating Stoicism as a subject to be studied and started treating it as a discipline to be practiced. I began to pressure test the principles in real time. When I felt anger rising, I would ask, "What is within my control here?" When I faced a difficult task, I would remind myself, "The obstacle is the way." This moved the philosophy from my head down into my bones, into my nervous system. These 10 realizations, when practiced consistently, didn't just give me a new set of ideas. They gave me, for lack of a better term, a new nervous system. My physiological responses to stress have changed. I appreciate ordinary moments with a depth I didn't know was possible. I worry infinitely less about what I can't control and take full, joyful ownership of what I can. The journey, of course, continues. There is no final finish line in the work of character. But now, I have a reliable, time-tested compass that always points me toward tranquility, virtue, and purpose. If this exploration of Stoic wisdom has resonated with you, if you feel that pull toward a deeper, more resilient way of living, please like this video. It genuinely helps us share this message with others who are searching for the same thing. Share it with a friend, a family member, or a colleague who you feel might benefit from this perspective. And of course, subscribe to Stoic Mindset Mastery. We have so much more to explore, together deep dives into specific practices, breakdowns of the classic texts, and a community to support you on your path. Now, I'm genuinely curious to hear from you. As we've walked through these 10 realizations, which one landed with the most force in your life right now? Which concept feels most urgent for you to explore and practice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insight and experience might be the very thing that helps another person see their own path more clearly.